susceptible to disease. We have people, I'm sure, within a 5-mile radius of where many of us live, who are also vulnerable populations who don't have access to care and treatment and prevention like the rest of us do. So I think it behooves us, if we have the opportunity, to sit this one out. My personal belief is that I will sit this out and try to support people how I can.
Definitely. And we'll come back to Mr. Maltabon. I hope he's still there. You've heard a lot of the conversation. What are some of your thoughts about what's going on and also how it plays into what's going on with your founding of Mindful Text and what you're trying to do? So I want to hear a little bit more about what you're doing just in terms of the Mindful Text concept and what your thoughts are on this.
Yeah. So it's definitely some interesting times, right? Like, my wife and I don't know how intense we should be practicing hygiene. Do we wash every single item we take into our place from outside? And, going into the more mathematical side, like, do you count how long the virus is going to live on cardboard versus steel? And then do you separate the cardboard stuff from outside from the steel stuff? You're being mindful about everything that you're touching, right? Like, so many different new things to pay attention to. I'm relatively young, so I'm self-quarantining pretty much only to make sure that the older people are taken care of. But still going on runs outside. A lot of other people seem to be going outside, but not congregating too closely in the park nearby. So everything else seems good. But, yeah, in terms of what we're doing, we're in one specific sense, we are helping people get in tune with themselves and get at least used to the isolation that is happening right now for the time being, right? Like, what can you do with all this time in such a small space? Well, practicing meditation and mindfulness is one of the perfect times to do so right now. And there are so many benefits that somebody can get from practicing meditation. And through my research, one of the biggest reasons why meditation is so hard is because of this concept called thought management. When you sit down and start to do introspective exercises, a lot of us have heard about this concept of monkey mind. When we sit down and try and get to know ourselves, essentially, we start thinking about the past, we start thinking about a conversation. We're trained to just keep thinking and thinking and thinking. And with mindfulness and meditation, you really train yourself to be calm. And, using this skill, it will help you in all sorts of different stresses. And especially during this time when there's just so much going on, there's so much uncertainty, the practice of mindfulness and meditation can help everyone not get used to what is going on, but just be okay and, just practice being calm, which will spread to everyone around them as well, because we know that negativity begets negativity, and when more people are acting calm, it will spread throughout more people as well.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely see that. Bobby, really quickly, and then I want to try to come back to some of the other folks, including a gentleman that is called in as well, who's a fellow podcaster and a comedian and everything. But Mark actually brought up a good point, which is that sometimes I wonder if people are not getting, and we've had some other scientists on as well, and pathologists, we're being told, to wash our hands, and definitely you should do that after you use it's common sense to use it after you use the bathroom and after different other times. But then there are some people that are concerned that maybe we're not getting a little bit too overly obsessed, like it's becoming obsessive compulsive when they're telling us, to wash your hands for 20 seconds or to separate the cardboard or to separate the mail and things of that nature. Is there any point where you are afraid that there might be some kind of push back on this and that people might feel that it's getting a little bit overly obsessive compulsive, for lack of a better term? And I know that we have to have these safety measures, but I was just wondering, as a scientist, what your thoughts are.
Well, yeah, so I think people feel susceptible, or they feel that they're at risk when they see it, right? When COVID first came out, I said, this isn't like Ebola. People won't see, blood coming out of orifices or anything. So I don't know that people fully understand their risks. This attacks your lungs. but my mother was a nurse, and just in general, I washed my hands a lot. I think at minimum, even when the messaging first came out, whether it was from the World Health Organization or the CDC, they were telling people to wash their hands, mostly because we put our hands in our face a lot, right? And so these viruses are looking for some good places to jump in. That would be your mouth, your nose, your eyes. So I don't know that. I think this is also a result of being inundated with so many messages. I do think that people just might kind of get exhausted with it all. But, I mean, the fundamental messaging that I'm getting, even looking at the World Health Organization, CDC, some of the local health departments, is to practice good hygiene. So I don't think people know some of the most disgusting things you can touch are doorknobs and gas pumps and keypads for ATMs, or when you're at the grocery store and you're putting in your PIN number. Those are cesspools. So just making sure that you keep your hands clean. That the same thing we teach our 5-year-old kids. Don't cough on people. Basic hygiene. And another piece of that is that they're still learning about this virus, which is why I said I'm not playing hokey pokey out here. But I hope that people can limit the information. It is a lot. I have to pull back on a lot of information, but basic hygiene. Keep your hands clean. Keep your hands out of your mouth and your nose. And for surfaces, I do think folks can go overboard, but I can't tell who can tell someone to not be safe. You know what I mean? So if folks want to leach down their whole house, I mean, go for it. I personally am not, but I think people just need to balance the information they're getting and just understand basic transmission. No one's expected to be an expert, but just practice basic hygiene to keep your body clean and others' bodies clean.
Yeah, that's one of the first things that when the virus first came out that my co-host Dean was talking about. He was talking about that a lot of it just seemed to be common sense. Dean, if you want to jump in and put it, I don't want to paraphrase you wrong and everything, but I know that your basic thing, Dean, was that it should just be common sense kind of stuff that we should be doing anyway, like washing your hands after you've been to the bathroom or, doing things like after the dishes, washing those dishes and very basic kind of things. Is that the basic message that you were trying to give our fellow listeners, Dean? Like I said, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Pretty much. I mean, we learned the lessons years ago about, not getting too close to people, and over time that space has gotten closer and closer and closer till some people are comfortable standing almost nose to nose trying to have a conversation with you. And it's like, I need you to step back. I can hear you from right there. I don't need you to be in my ear, literally, for me to hear you. When we use the restroom, when we touch certain surfaces, if you touch 5 or 6 different things, being able to wipe down those door handles and all of those things, because it's amazing as to how much we didn't pay attention to what we touched and didn't think anything about wiping it off on your shirt or on your pants, or even getting a napkin and just kind of wiping it off but not washing it off. So now we have a pandemic here where we don't know where it came from. We don't know how long it's going to stay, and we have no clue of where it's going to go, whether it's going to go away or whether it's going to progress. So we start looking at a lot of things and paying attention to some of those things that we were taught growing up, just basic hygiene.
Yep, exactly.
I agree with a lot of the things you said. I think, can I just add one more thing, Mark? I do want to add, you hit the nail on the head. You really, really did. I also want to add, when I say there are lots of unknowns with this virus, we don't know, like this virus might stay in the air for like an hour. Like we don't know that part yet. And so, there's basic hygiene for us to do. But if we learn that this virus, and again, I'm not a physician. I don't want to play one on TV. But if this virus is sitting in the air for an hour, then we probably don't need people walking around or in closed spaces, or for people who live in areas where they don't have the privilege or luxury of not being piled on top of each other in a building. These are some of the things that we also need to know. But I feel that as the scientists are exploring and learning these things, basic hygiene is, we're smarter than we think. We're much smarter than we think.
Definitely. I want to bring Kevin into the conversation as well and everything. Kevin, like I said, is a fellow podcaster, a fantasy football person, and things of that nature. We know that one of the industries that is being impacted big time is sports and things of that nature. So, Kevin, I know I met you through Kimberly, and Kimberly is on the call as well. Met you through the IBM TV folks. So, Kevin, tell us where you're calling from and what you're doing in terms of being quarantined and everything, and whether you're seeing people in your neighborhood wearing masks. Because I've noticed that most of the people I've seen here in the Durham area are wearing the mask, but I did go out and I've seen quite a few people that are not wearing the mask and not doing other things that people are telling them to do in the sense of gloves and things of that nature. So, Kevin, what about where you're at? Tell folks where you're at. Tell a little bit about your podcast and about the different things that you're involved in.
Be glad to, Mark. How the hell are you, buddy? What's going on?
Doing good.
Good. I'm Kevin Gauthier. I live up in North Jersey. I'm in Secaucus, which is a stone's throw from Manhattan. I can see the skyline, right on my window. I'm a 10-minute train ride to the city. In fact, I work in the city. Worked, I should say. We all got sent home from work, as my wife did too. So we're both working from home now. And where I live, I do see a lot of people a lot of people are wearing the mask. I wear it when I'm in my building. I live in a complex development, 4 floors in each building. So when I go down to get my mail or my paper or whatever packages, I always wear the mask. And on the way to the car, we have a parking garage in our building, so we wear it in and around the garage. My wife, my daughter, we all wear it inside. Again, the building itself. Once you get outside, though, we take it off unless we're walking nearby people. I go for runs in my park in the area, which a lot of people are hanging around in. We try and give each other a wide berth. And if it's unable to do so, I have my mask around my neck at all times. But when I'm running, I'll just throw it right back on while I pass them, and give about 5 Mississippi before I pull it back down and not have the mask on. So yeah, people are pretty good around here for that. I think everyone's trying to be very mindful as much as possible.
Yeah, it does seem like people are trying to be mindful in that area. Just to folks that are listening, and we do like to share not just our own podcast, but share other people and what they're doing. So tell a little bit about the podcast that you're doing. Like I said, I know that part of it involves your comedy because you are a comedian, but it also involves sports because you're a big fan. We've talked about that on the show on the IBM TV, that you're a big sports fan. We both learned a little bit about cricket because I'm not going to lie, I knew nothing about cricket until Kim brought her producer on that tried to give us a quick education on cricket.
Yeah, I have several. The sports one you mentioned, this fantasy football jibber jabber, that takes fantasy football and NFL gambling and combines into one show. That's always in the fall, when football season is on. So right now it's not on, obviously. But the podcast, my main one right now, which is evergreen. It's called Gutting the Sacred Cow. And what it is if you're a fan of films, if you're a fan of stand-up comics, talking about films, that's our show. And here's the difference between us and every other movie podcast. What we do is this. We invite guests on the podcast, and they pick a film that they hate or find overrated. Now, here's where – and their job is to convince us to see their argument. Now, here's the difference. The film they choose has to meet one of 3 criteria. It has to be a financial success or widely beloved or critically acclaimed. Because anyone can go out there and make fun of Friday the 13th Part 6. That's a no-brainer. But it's going to take real skill to come in and knock down something along the lines of, Back to the Future or Goodfellas or, I don't know, Avengers. Something that's been really loved and regaled. It's going to take skill to do that. So it's Gutting the Sacred Cow. We're on YouTube, and we're on all the podcast platforms you can imagine. iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, all of them.
But we're going to have fun with this because I've got a filmmaker on the line. So, Seneca, you studied filmmaking. So, Seneca, I need you to give him a film that you would take down because it's not as great as people think that it is. So, Seneca, you're a filmmaker. You've done filmmaking for a while. So, I'm going to put you on the spot. So, Seneca, as a filmmaker, what's a film that you would take down because it's overrated?
Good Will Hunting. Yeah, let's start there. Yeah, Good Will Hunting. Where do we begin? Yeah.
You do not like Good Will Hunting. Did I hear that right?
Yeah, Good Will Hunting.
He does not like Good Will Hunting. So how would you battle him? He does not like Good Will Hunting.
So basically, you agree with me. Okay, good.